Hello everyone, my name is Examu, and today is about time we had the last part of my coverage of Unity of Command 2 Barbarossa DLC. I'm happy to say that at the time of this recording, I have gone through the entire DLC twice on Classic and Hard difficulty. So I think some conclusions are in order. And do I even need to spell it out? Isn't it obvious? I've played it twice. I spent 40 or 50 hours playing it. It's brilliant. And to be honest, I think it's significantly better than the Blitzkrieg DLC, which I also kind of liked. And the beauty of Barbarossa comes from the fact that in most cases, the difficulty, the challenge comes not from very tight deadlines and relying on very lucky die rolls, and more on what you actually do with your troops, where you move them, how you position them, where you put your HQs and supply hubs. In 90% of the times, when you make a mistake, you know it's because you made a mistake. You made the wrong choices. And it's not the game's mechanics delivering you a turd on a plate because random. I still shudder remembering certain missions from the Blitzkrieg DLC, like Low Countries or Fallbraun. And I'm not trying to disparage the work of the people who made these scenarios because they're beautiful and detailed, but there is something in them that makes you feel not in control, makes you feel that your mistakes are not your mistakes. And Barbarossa shows a huge improvement on that front. I hardly ever had that feeling of, okay, I need to re-roll the dice and I hope for the best. There's some of it in Dnieper crossings, there's certainly a little bit of it in Pskov and Odessa, but past that, Barbarossa is smooth. And the fact that as soon as I finished the DLC on Classic, I immediately continued to play it on Hard is a testament to how much fun it is to play. Blitzkrieg is a great DLC to a great game, but I did not have that urge when I finished it. However, there's one thing that Blitzkrieg had and Barbarossa didn't, and it's the existence of this alternative history branch. It was good fun, and for speculative scenarios, they were well detailed and elaborate. Barbarossa doesn't have it, even though there are a few objectives that you can take that weren't taken in real life, and I wish there were some of the what-ifs of that campaign. What if they took Leningrad? What if they focused on Moscow instead of going to the south? But it's clear that such branching isn't available in the DLC because it's huge to begin with, even in its historical form. And in fairness, I've already seen people making up Eastern Front scenarios, so there's your way to plug that hole. And before we get to the mission guides, let me just tell you that I'm publishing all of my playthroughs on Hard with commentary on my second channel, Slofaboomer Couch Buttock, and at the time of this video, I've covered more than half of all of the missions, and I'm publishing the last Gates of Moscow mission right now, so if you want to take a more detailed look, in addition to my guide here, go ahead and check my other channel out. Tikhvin is very much what you would call a one-trick mission. And like so many things in Unity of Command, it's related to supply. And the trick is, if you cut the railway between Volkhov and Tikhvin, that big mechanized Soviet force poised to attack Schlüsselburg, and it will attack Schlüsselburg, will be left without supply and pretty much stuck there until you go in and kill them. The problem is that the AI has 2 trucks in its reserve, and if it sees any trouble brewing in Volkhov, it'll set up a supply hub northeast of it to relieve these guys. To trick the AI into making a mistake here, break through at Chudova, which is a pretty obvious move here, and try to at least partially encircle the Soviet guys standing next to the river, especially that unit with engineers and entrenchment. You're probably not gonna kill it on turn 1. If you manage to force these divisions out of supply, the AI will try to remediate it and expand the nearby level 1 supply hub to level 3. Thus losing its reserve, and needless to say, on turn 2 you will have no problems taking that supply hub and actually blocking that railway. At this point, the Soviet troops around Volkhov will be out of supply, and the AI will not be able to help them for 3 turns, which is enough to run them dry and destroy them easily. So advance there, push in, clear the area around Volkhov, and then move towards Ladenia Pole and eventually destroy the defenders there. The difficulty of the Tikhvin objective really depends on the difficulty of your game. On Classic, I found that it's very easily takeable by an elite, well-equipped tank division, mission, whereas on hard, this probably is going to be the most difficult part of the mission, and you will need a couple of infantry divisions equipped with artillery there, and use HQ combat abilities to squeeze that well-entrenched unit out of there. Two final points: never leave Schlüsselburg empty. The Soviet divisions on the other side will not hesitate to take it back, and I've actually lost this mission a couple of times like this because of my carelessness. And finally, the areas south of Tikhvin and east of Chudovo and Novgorod aren't really that relevant to the mission. Nothing interesting is going to happen there. Just make sure you watch out for those bridges and keep Chudovo and Novgorod in your hands. At a first glance, the Crimea mission can look a little daunting. The map is huge and the biggest objectives are far, far away, and you're given hardly any mobile troops, it's just infantry. Since when is it 1914 again? In any case, upon closer inspection, the mission isn't too terrible, but there are a bunch of things you need to do and need to keep an eye on. One, even though the area between Perekop and Krasnoperekopsk looks like your main thrust, the troops you are getting north of Jankoy are actually more decisive at the initial stages of this mission. Not least because you get two precious cavalry units there, and you will need it to outpace the defending and potentially retreating Soviet troops. So make sure your HQ is close enough to that area and assault crossing the heck out of the defending infantry units. If you've got an air support card, and you should, use it because you're getting one in Krasnoperekopsk anyway. And once Krasnoperekopsk and Jankoy are indeed yours, rush at least two cavalry units southwards towards Simferopol. It's actually easy to take the town early as it's still undefended. Send some of the stronger infantry divisions from around Krasnoperekopsk along that dirt road towards Yevpatoria. With this arrangement, the Soviet troops in the area, probably still very numerous, will stick in the middle of that field between Jankoy and Yevpatoria, where they are not very well supplied and will not stop you from infiltrating to the south. Be very thoughtful about juggling your supply hubs and your HQ's emergency supply ability because, well, the supply situation in this map is terrible. But in any case, Yevpatoria is not a difficult objective. The defenders there, as you can see, are recruits and have no defensive steps, so kick them out and take the town. Let's look at the east for now. Keep an eye on the hex with the town east of Jankoy and that bridge south of it. The AI absolutely loves using these hexes to block your supply lines, so make sure they're guarded, and send a good 5 or 6 or even 7 divisions to the east. As you can see with the current layout, there are 2 river crossings guarded by the Soviets, and those divisions will not leave. So make sure one of these divisions that you send is highly experienced and has artillery and engineer specialist steps. I also like using a couple of Romanian units in the area of Stary Krim to just cause shenanigans and block Soviet routes of supply. In any case, once those river crossings are down and your way towards Feodosia is clear, taking the town itself shouldn't be too much of a problem, and if you have a unit with a Stug, you might actually be able to force that infantry unit out of the town and take the town early. From there on, send 3 or 4 decent infantry units to take Kerch. I've never found that objective to be particularly difficult, so I'm not even showing it on the map. As for the area around Sevastopol, your biggest problem isn't going to be firepower. You're probably going to have plenty there. It's probably going to be about supply. So make sure to keep that railway between Jankoy and Simferopol clear, and once those river crossings in the east are done with, send your HQ to the south. You will largely need it to give emergency supplies to your advancing units. Otherwise, I haven't found the southern objectives to be particularly difficult. The cavalry around Yalta tends to run out of supplies, so it's probably not going to be too difficult to kill, and you're given plenty of time to actually approach the town from the mountains. And in Sevastopol, I'd suggest not going through the fortifications and instead take a scenic cruise along those bridges and dirt roads. Finally, keep in mind that if you want to play the Sevastopol Assault optional scenario in this campaign, don't take the Sevastopol objective because there's going to be no assault if the city is yours. Just as a little warning, I haven't played this mission as part of the campaign. This is a single mission Sevastopol Assault playthrough, and your mileage may vary. In any case, I've found this mission to be rather easy, and I've completed it on hard, and one of your first informal objectives in this mission is to split the Soviet pockets into a few smaller pockets. To do that, squeeze the Soviet Marines out of Makenziyevo Station right off the bat on turn 1 is very possible. And in the south, taking Sapun Ridge on turn 1 as well is a very, very good start. And you can already see where this is going. Your goal is to connect these two prongs of attack so that the Soviets in the salient are left without supply. So be aggressive, get to that forest hex next to Maxim Gorky 1 and plow through those destroyed fortifications. Remember, unlike cities, destroyed fortifications are weaker than intact ones. Another thing that you can do on turn 1 is to force that infantry unit northeast of Coastal Battery 10 out of its position and then squeeze in through those pontoon bridges and into those empty hexes so that you encircle and eventually starve Coastal Battery 10 as well. Mount Gasford shouldn't pose too much of a problem at this point. Make sure to bring some artillery steps and use set-piece attack to squeeze these guys out. Once you split the Soviet pocket into a bunch of chunks, your next two objectives should be Maxim Gorky 1 and Balaklava. I found Balaklava to probably be the most annoying objective of the entire mission, because it's away from where the main action is, and you are unlikely to have enough firepower to take that objective in time, so I highly recommend you to use your flying artillery to blast them and then take the town. You really don't have to hold it, so feel free to leave it as soon as you take it. Even though it's a fort, Maxim Gorky 1 isn't too hard of an objective, and it's certainly not worth using flying artillery on. The unit inside it is rather weak, so bring in engineers, bring in artillery, and you'll destroy them. The last objective here is Sevastopol proper, and as you can see on the map, it's very likely to be guarded by green or generally weak units, and the deadline is very lax, so your main challenge here is not to lose your elite troops with good equipment. The Kharkov mission is a testament to how scenarios in war games can have an element of horror in them. Just look at this map. It's full of mud. In this insane universe, Frost is your best friend. You look at the map, you look at the objectives, and then you just say no. I'm not getting there in time. And it is indeed a bit tough. Let's look at the flanks first. Our most immediate objective here is Sumy. My approach there has been sending those 3 northernmost units to destroy Soviet Rifle Division guarding the town, and then actually taking it. You don't have to hold it, by the way. From there on, it really depends on how well you succeed elsewhere. You may rush across the river and take that supply hub, or cut that northern railway feeding the Soviets, or weather permitting, killing the other Soviet division guarding the area. Yes, weather permitting. My instructions here are very deliberately non-specific, because whether you get snow or mud has a decisive effect on what you're gonna do. Actually, on the right flank, the objectives are a bit more clear. I highly recommend you to equip that light division with an artillery step. They are the fastest unit there, and they have the best chance of getting to Lozova in time. The rest of the infantry in the area should follow them. And by the way, a little tip. Use set-piece attack on enemy infantry sitting in muddy forest. They will not be able to retreat because of the terrain and will be cornered, no matter how strong they are. Anyway, once the guys on the right flank take Lozovaya, my usual approach has been splitting them into 2 parts. One helping with a push on Kharkov, and the other one preferably the artillery-equipped elite units. Advancing towards Izum, the town is somewhat protected and there will be nobody to help you there, so make sure the troops you bring there have good firepower. Alright, let's finally get to the center. You have 2 options for your main push here. Either northeast of Poltava, breaking through the enemy cavalry divisions and doing a pincer maneuver across that supply hub and towards Kharkov, or southeast of Poltava, where you drive straight to Kharkov. I've been able to win this mission with both of these approaches, and I believe that the decision of which route to take really depends on how strong your divisions in that specific area are, and of course on your weather conditions. For example, the map here is from my classic playthrough, and as you can see I have 2 elite divisions facing that direction which I'm supposed to attack, and the other salient is not too strong. In my hard playthrough it was the exact opposite. The southern salient was alright and got decent weather on turn 1, while the northern one barely scraped by. The advantages of the southern route is that you split the Soviet forces located around Poltava and those around Lozovaya, and because you're on a direct route towards Kharkov, it'll be easier for you to take the bridge east of it and ultimately Kupiansk. If you go north, it's much easier to cut the supply of all of the Soviet troops in the center of the map by crossing the northwestern railway line and using precision bombing on the rest of them. I've also found it easier to envelop Kharkov and take Belgorod if you go from the north as well. So as you can see, both of these options are valid, and choose whatever fits you best in your specific situation. Rostov is a pretty easy ending for the southern theater of this DLC, which kind of brought a bunch of very difficult missions, starting from Odessa, which I still believe is the hardest mission of the entire DLC. But back to Rostov, and the fact that you get 3 precision bombing strikes in this mission is a hint that you can probably steal all pizza from the Soviets and leave them without supply. And that's what you should do in the first 3 turns. Destroy all of the bridges in the north. I've found that the AI is not trying to repair them, and starting with the bridge next to Voroshilovgrad will relieve the guys around Kadivka of any of their supplies right from the start. The Soviets also have a source of supply on the other side of the Don in the south, and you're probably not going to take that area early in the mission, so your immediate objectives for those powerful tanks in the south is to break through initial defenders, move and take Novocherkassk, and then block those pontoon bridges in the east. This will cut the supply off for the entire area north of the Don. It will also prevent the Soviets from using these bridges to get any reinforcements from the south, which they'll get in huge numbers. It's also very likely that your Mountaineer divisions are gonna be as strong and elite as mine are in this example, and they should be powerful enough to actually take Krasny Luch on turn 1. In the area around Kadivka, don't bother trying to maintain a front line west of it. Send the guys to the north into the forest, and more importantly, consolidate your troops in the south to protect the railway leading from Stalino to Taganrog. The Soviets might try to break out with their cavalry, and if they manage to block that railway, well, I'm guessing you know what's going to happen to that panzer offensive in the south. It also doesn't hurt to reinforce Stalino with the guys you have around Mariupol. But once the Soviets start running out of supply, Kadivka is going to fall very quickly. I don't see any reason to rush Rostov on turn 1, and on turn 2 it is as good a time as any to use your flying artillery. Don Bridgehead can wait a little as you're clearing the area north of it. It's also a good idea to keep the hex west of it in your hands so that you can directly attack that place. But otherwise, if you do everything right in the north, Don Bridgehead should fall pretty quickly. Just make sure that you send a very strong unit to defend it, because the Soviets will almost certainly try to kick it out. And finally, this is the last mission of the Barbarossa DLC. Appropriately at the gates of Moscow looks to be rather challenging, and to an extent it is, but if you know how to do a few things right, you can pretty much guarantee victory. It's not Odessa. As you can see, the Soviets have craploads of troops everywhere, and they will get even more. So don't hope to kill all of them, don't expect to encircle all of them and kill all of them and take Moscow, but what you can and should do right from the start is break through south of Klin. Squeeze your tank divisions into that breach and try to get as close as possible to that bridge north of Moscow. I also typically use my precision bombing strike to destroy that little supply hub in Klin. This will force a chunk of Soviet troops there out of supply and will eventually help you to clear that area completely. Next up, make sure you have a very strong unit holed up in Kalinin. The Soviets will try to retake the town, and you mustn't lose it. Clearing the hexes around it on your side of the river might be a good idea. Also, the Soviet troops around Torzhok will not attack at all. You can move all of that infantry guarding that front away to more important bits, and certainly take away their specialist steps they're better used elsewhere. Looking south, I think Minsk is probably the most difficult objective of the entire mission. On the one hand, it's rather well defended. On the other, and most importantly, once you take it, the Soviets will try to retake it. And the Soviets will have lots of well-supplied troops in the area to try and do that. This might just be the perfect location for your saturation strike, to clear the town itself and damage as many Soviet troops around it as possible. Finally, in the south, your strategy should be pretty simple. Two of your oversupplied tank divisions do a pincer maneuver north towards Kolomna. There shouldn't be too much resistance there. The Soviet supply hub next to Ryazan might help you with that, and if you advance there right from the start, you can reach Kolomna while it's still undefended. I advise you to retreat that motorized division back to Tula. It's a much more defensible position, and the Soviets will try to counterattack in that area. The rest of your troops there, and remember you are getting quite a lot of reinforcements here, including 3 motorized divisions, should deal with the Soviet defenders around Stalinogorsk and Yefremov and ultimately take that objective. Just remember that the Soviet cavalry will try to block your railway line there. If they do, it's probably not going to be the end of the world, but keep an eye on your zones of control and your front line there. During the subsequent turns, your forward tanks in the area south of Klin will rush ahead and take Zagorsk and ultimately Noginsk. They will almost certainly not be defended, and the only trick there will be to keep your tanks supplied, and it's a good idea to bring your Panzergruppe HQs into that breach. As you effect that maneuver, as you take Zagorsk, Klin will be left without any supply and will be very easy to take on time. As a final note, don't forget that this is the last mission of the DLC. Use all of your cards and don't worry about your losses if they get you closer to victory. Good luck. And this is it for today and for Barbarossa DLC. I'm looking forward to all of the content 2x2 are gonna make in the future. Unity of Command 2 has finally stepped into the original game's territory, and I can't wait for the sequel to supplant the original. Cheers.